speaking of local campaigns, we're going to pull in Pondering Politics here so that we can ask questions about the about the brain fart there, about the canvassing process in Wisconsin. So gonna pull him down here. I can't actually pull him in. Sam, could you pull him in?
I got it.
Okay. I guess I only have that permission for one voice channel. There we go.
Hey,
Hello.
Josiah.
It's the king himself.
Oh.
Goodbye. That was the king himself.
Yep.
That's definitely Discord, because it puts that join this channel, and you're like, oh, I have to join that channel. But that's the last channel you're in.
Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hey, good to see you again.
Hey, thanks, Sam. How is everybody?
I'm doing great.
Yes, very good.
Well, wait,
So-
do we have a Canuck here? A Canadian?
No, we purged them. So
We did. I'm actually in the South. I just wanted to wear a red shirt, and I got this when I visited my ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I know this. I know this race is a big deal. I didn't realize it was going to our northernly neighbors.
Well, you also just missed an actual Canadian that we had on. Really? Yeah, we actually have had a Canadian on so far.
Gotcha. What has Prime Minister Trudeau said about this this very important race in Wisconsin? Has he weighed in at all?
He's really kind of pursuing a campaign of silence right now.
Gotcha.
It's
Gotcha.
he's treating it like some of his costumes from years past.
Nice.
Yeah, the only thing that-
ouch. Oh, I didn't catch the reference immediately, but now, oh yeah. Yeah.
The only thing Mr. Trudeau did reference, though, is that people outside of the United States cannot donate to this effort, but they can help by phone banking.
Yep.
So, !phone bank in the chat to do just that.
Do you know,
I found
just
the
as a
opportunity and I
sidebar,
took it.
that was a great plug, but as a sidebar, do you know what they call a Canadian's first priority? It's priority A.
Thanks, Dad.
Beautiful.
Whatever.
Beautiful.
I stand by that. I'll leave now. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the invite, guys. Later.
Aw.
Aw.
Now you know how to clear people out.
But Pondering Politics, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Where can people
Thank
find
you.
you?
So-
All that stuff.
Absolutely. So my name is Josiah. I have a YouTube channel called Pondering Politics, where basically I rant about Republicans and conservatives nonstop. I am firmly anti-Republican more than I am pro anything. I consider myself progressive, but I think the Republican Party is the single greatest threat to the progress of not only the United States, but also the planet writ large, and we have to get them out of power. I used to go by Ruminate. That's what I am on Twitter. I guess you consider me a destiny orbiter. I'm trying to be the little progressive angel on his shoulder to keep him as left as we possibly can get him. And I've been affiliated with Progress Libs through Maya, aka Femboy Maths, and we work together in North Carolina, where we both live. And she asked me to come out and help in Milwaukee, and so I did that about 2 weeks ago. Froze my ass off, but I loved it. Had a good time, and yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, you're basically here so we can pick your brains on like how things went in Wisconsin, like what seemed to be people's like priorities, your canvassing experience, all of that. Because we talked a bit earlier about how one of the things that seems to be keeping a lot of people from doing phone banking or canvassing is just really not knowing what to expect from the entire experience. So, thank you very much for
Talking to
coming
people
on.
on the phone's scary. Talking to people in person, even more so.
Yeah, true.
Well,
I
it's
get it.
actually it's interesting you say that, because actually personally I have the exact opposite impression myself. So like I struggle when there's not either like a face-to-face, like some sort of like you can read body language, establish rapport, look somebody in the eye. Because it's all coming down like just your voice, and if you catch it, and somebody I think is more likely I feel to be abrupt or rude with you yeah, unless you're in person. I'll tell you from my experience canvassing in North Carolina and in Milwaukee for this particular race, knock on wood, I did not have one rude or negative encounter during the 3 days that we were canvassing. As a matter of fact, the most memorable encounter that I had, which was positive, was with it was the final day. It was the day after we did our first stream, Riverboat Jack. I think it was on a Saturday night, so we canvassed Sunday before I flew home. And the most positive encounter I had was with a conservative. So we get a curated list on this app called Minivan, and so the problem with Wisconsin, I guess I wouldn't call it the problem, but we don't have, it's not a partisan election, and you can't affiliate with a particular party when you register to vote. So unlike a lot of other states, it's really hard to get curated lists, but we try because our goal is to maximize Democratic voter turnout, not so much to persuade Republicans to vote for Democrats or even moderates. It's basically to try to maximize the people who are most likely to vote Democrat. It's hard to get a curated list for that. But we did get a list, and one of the doors I was knocking on, the person was supposedly a Democrat. Knock on a door, her husband answered, and long story short, I said, hey, I gave the spiel, we're just going around canvassing, reminding people about this extremely important Supreme Court race, and the guy said, yeah, I know, I can't wait to vote for Judge Kelly. And it just took me off guard. I was like, okay, and he saw in my hand that I had the Judge Protasewicz thing, and I'm just kind of like, just kind of sliding it by my back. And so we had a really great conversation. We laughed. He was like, listen, I really don't like her, but my wife is as far left as I am far right. If she were here, I'd let her talk to you. And we had a really good conversation. I said, so it's a divided house? And he goes, yeah. And I said, so it must make for a really interesting home life. And he goes, there are a lot of heated arguments. And I said, well, because it's your wife, I feel like you have to lose no matter what. And he goes, yeah, no matter what the situation is, I still lose. And so we shook hands and wished each other the best, but not really. We were both like politely, hope your candidate loses. And that was it. It was the longest conversation that I had, and it was really, really positive.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Because I think a lot of people are afraid of like encountering someone who's gonna be like, oh, like why I oughta like, and I don't think that, from what I've heard from canvassers, that is extraordinarily uncommon.
Yeah, I have to imagine. I mean, I didn't hear, when the weekend that I was in Milwaukee canvassing with Progress Lives and Progressive Victory, I didn't hear a single encounter to that effect. You got to remember that. So like, you got to adjust your expectations. I feel like most people who canvass, I think, are under the impression that everybody will answer the25 to 30% of people actually answer the door. Think about it. Would you answer the door if somebody knocks? I mean, we're all like an antisocial society these days. So very few people will answer the door, number one. Number two, most people are pretty polite. Now, again, I feel like you got to read the room, right? You got to read body language. If they're like sliding their way back into the house, that's your cue to, move on and disengage. But I did not hear a single person come back and say, you know what, I got a heated exchange, or I got threatened, or, somebody used profanity at me. It was all really positive.
Yeah, I think that's what you had said previously about people being kinder when face to face. I guess I've been saying that more or less for a long time. Like my views on Twitter are well known to people who have been in my audience. But like, that's the place where people get to go and complain and be as rude as possible because they are at least semi-anonymous in that space. But like, the closer you get to like a human conversation, like away from text to a phone conversation where you're hearing someone and they're being polite to you, right? It makes it harder to be rude to them. Not impossible, but harder to do so. And then when you're face to face, and this person who doesn't seem to mean you any harm, but just might disagree with you, as they are, well, okay, well, why do you disagree? Why do you hold those positions, right? You can have these conversations. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a debate, but just an exchange of ideas in a human moment. Because, like, as humans, who live out in the world, we encounter people who disagree with us all the time. And most of those times, the vast majority of those times, like don't end with people like cursing each other out and like getting into a physical altercation or something, which is what a lot of people I'm sure are afraid of when it comes to canvassing. It's just like, oh, okay, well you disagree. This is my position, and then we'll just go on and live our lives. But more often than not, then, especially because you are like campaigns want to use targeted lists to again not waste your time, because as I said previously, they consider your time to be valuable, right? Each individual person. What do you want them like going down a Republican neighborhood, right? And like you're not going to make much progress there. So they want you to have as much success as possible. So they send you to places where you're most likely to have that level of success. And yeah, those people either maybe they might be busy, so they'll do that sliding thing that he was talking about, right? Just doesn't happen to be a good time. But oftentimes, like yeah, they're when they do answer, they're willing to have a conversation. They're willing to talk,
Sure.
and it's a pleasant thing.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The idea that both the local Democratic chapter and then the canvassing group that you're dealing with, both of these organizations are trying to set you up for success. Like you said, your time and your resources are finite, and I mean, just bluntly speaking, the last thing we want to do is remind Republicans that the election's coming. You know what I mean? Like the last thing we'd want to do is go down like a predominantly Republican neighborhood and be like, hey, get out and vote. Just kidding. Don't do that. No. So yeah, they're definitely trying to set you up for success. It's not neutral terrain. They're doing everything in their power to make it as favorable for you as possible. So
yeah, one of the oh, sorry, just real quick. One of the political organizing folks in my community wrote, no Republican is going to shoot a shotgun out their door at you if you used to worry about that like me. And I think a lot of people go into it canvassing actually kind of worried that that is going to happen. So just to reinforce that that is not going to happen.
Sure, and not only that, but the other thing, I mean, you got to use your intuition, right? If for whatever reason you feel hella uncomfortable approaching a particular door, like it looks like, you know, something out of the Stephen King movie, you know, you're looking at the house in it or whatever, and you like, it's not like you're going to be flogged or punished if like you know, Maya is not going to freak out if you get a vibe like beware of dogs or whatever. Like it gives you the vibe that you don't feel safe. Your safety is the most important thing. You just you know, move on.
Trespassers will be shot. Okay, well,
right,
not this one.
Right.
Well,
Right.
the phone bankers will get that one, but like,
that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that raises an important point, and that's something I wanted to ask you. Actually, is you know from your time doing the canvassing efforts in Wisconsin, and you know going door to door and having to read the room in certain unique situations. I guess what has been the most common discussion that you've had with the people that you've been interacting with? Like, what's the most common talking point that you've utilized?
I wish I had a really novel answer for you, but the truth is that example of the conservative gentleman that I spoke with, that was by far the closest thing to an actual dialogue that I had with anybody who answered the door. For the most part, when people answered the door and they would engage, it was just like a very quick thing, like, yep, you know, I early voted, or no, I already planned to go for Judge Janet, you know, Daniel Kelly's crazy or anything like, in which case there's no point in even like, you know, fluffing that up anymore. They clearly have the right sentiment. So in my experience, as much as I love to talk, the conversations have been very short, positive but short, and the closest one was that one with the conservative person.
And generally speaking, these interactions are supposed to be short, right? Like for people who are watching who are maybe interested in joining in on this, you know, canvassing efforts are about hitting as many houses and speaking to as many people as possible. So it's not like you're supposed to sit there with a person and, you know, utterly dominate them with facts and logic for 15 minutes. Like it's usually a brief exchange, maybe 2 or 3 minutes max, and then go to the next house. You know, am I on the mark on that one?
100%. Prime said it earlier how, you know, people who've not done it before, but like who are either streamers or follow streamers might have the instinct like, okay, I have to prepare for a debate. No, that would be the worst possible thing you can do. Like even with the conservative gentleman who was clearly dead set on voting for Judge Kelly, And we started to stray, like, he mentioned a couple of things. He was like, Judge Janet is too political, right? Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, buddy, okay, you want to do this, but I didn't point out, like, listen, Daniel Kelly was involved in a plot to send fake electors in the 2020 presidential election. He was paid a six-figure sum by the Republican Party in Wisconsin to steal Wisconsin's votes from President Biden. That's political. I didn't bring up how when he was an interim Supreme Court justice in 2016, how he presided over 6 cases involving 6 organizations with whom he had ties, did not recuse himself, and then adjudicated in their favor. Extremely unethical, all these things. It could have, like, if we were having a conversation like this, that stuff would have been easy to, like, rapid fire. But all that was going to do is piss him off, right? And so you just say, you just try to, like, almost like conversational jujitsu, right? You duck and weave, and you try to keep it as pleasant as possible. And we did. So no, you do not debate. Do not debate. Emphatically do not.
Right. Yeah, it's like debate in that you're trying to get something out of the conversation, but instead of trying to, like, own your opponent and make them look foolish, you're trying to form a connection with them on something that you find that's a commonality or where you find an opening.
Yeah. Can I ask, like, what was the thing that made you get involved in canvassing in the first place? Like, what triggered that in North Carolina?
So, I've always been a politics geek. Even in high school, I was that nerd who could watch C-SPAN and, like, watch a lot of legal dramas and stuff like that, whereas other people were watching, science. I enjoy science fiction and other things, but I mean, like, I had a real, and still do. I work from home, and I have C-SPAN constantly in circulation and political commentary. I was a political science major in college, and my original idea was go to law school, practice law for 10 years, and then go into politics. Didn't end up going to law school, but when I lived in Kentucky, and when I moved to Louisville, Kentucky, I got involved with helping out a buddy of mine who worked for Governor Beshear, then Attorney General Andy Beshear, who, by the way, is a phenomenal Democrat. Kentucky is lucky to have him. Unfortunately, there's a supermajority in Kentucky of Republicans who just today overrode a governor's veto blocking an anti-trans law, a really regressive anti-trans law in Kentucky. So anyway, he's up for re-election.
It's a terrible law.
Atrocious, absolutely atrocious. And unfortunately, Governor Beshear's veto is insufficient, and he's up for re-election. I would encourage people to get involved in that as well. But anyway, so I was kind of involved with canvassing for him and helping out a buddy of mine who was really close with the campaign. Then when I moved to North Carolina, and I wanted to start doing political content quite often, like short video essays and stuff on my channel, Pondering Politics, I was like, I also want to do it in person. Like, I want to get involved in person. IRI and I pushed Destiny to do the canvassing event in Georgia. I was one of the people who got him to do that. So he organized a 250 person thing out in Georgia. I got connected with Maya Femboy Maths, and that's how we got involved in North Carolina. She's really, really cool. She knows her stuff. I think I can't imagine where she's going to be in 10 years. Young as she is, she'll probably be ruling the Democratic Party with an iron fist in 10 years. And then I got involved with Progressive Victory through watching Vaush, and that's it. I enjoy doing it. It's nice, especially when it's local. North Carolina's weather is pretty beautiful. But even in Milwaukee, in 17-degree weather, bitterly cold, it was really cool feeling like I made just a little bit of difference and wasn't just talking about it. I actually had feet on the ground and was knocking on doors and putting my money where my mouth is. So,
all right, 1 second. We're going to pull Lance from the Serfs in, and here we go. Hello.
Honestly, my Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Pondering, my takeaway from that is that you chose not to go to law school, and I give you big props for doing that. Best decision of your life.
Hey,
You're the
Lance.
attorney.
How you doing?
Exactly.
It's great to see you.
What's up, friends? How you doing?
King Lance.
Yeah, we're talking with Pondering Politics here about his experiences canvassing on the ground in Wisconsin. And generally, we're trying to encourage people to get out, volunteer to canvass, and phone bank for the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race that's currently going on that has implications for trans people, abortion rights, and democracy itself in Wisconsin. And unfortunately, that also has national ramifications, and the national ramifications have international ramifications, and it's weirdly the biggest race that's going on in 2023. So thank you for joining us. And I just want to point out that people can volunteer to canvass and phone bank, even if you are not a U.S. citizen. So if you are in Canada and would like to get involved, you can phone bank in the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race.
Also, phone banking is fun and based and super easy. And if you're someone who's like super shy about knocking on doors and doing that kind of canvassing, because I've done both, especially for like local elections, phone banking, they put this like system on, it just like auto dials one after the other. You end up having like 50 conversations with strangers, and they're actually super awesome. And even if they're like adversarial, it's like someone who doesn't have the same political beliefs as you, but they still are quite nice and kind just to have a conversation. I only had like one or two people who were like, fuck you, call me. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, but for the most part, they're super nice. And so like I recommend everything everyone's probably already talked about on this, as well as like, yeah, take local elections extremely seriously, and volunteering is super based and awesome. So you're all wonderful.
Yeah, real quick, can you introduce yourself? Where can people find you?
I'm TheSerfs, Lance of TheSerfs. You can find me everywhere on social media at TheSerfs TV, as well as TheSerfs.tv, if you want to watch some live streams or other videos that are on there. And yeah, I live in Vancouver, Canada, but I am very, very, very keen on encouraging people to participate not only in the sexy elections, like, the federal elections. Those are sexy. You get to vote for a president or a prime minister. It's like, hell yeah, wow, we get a president. But your local elections are so fucking important. They determine so many things, like your police budget, a lot of shit, your city councilors, your school, like a lot of the stuff that will affect your day to day is your local elections. And no one fucking turns out. There's nobody. Like,
Yep.
Honestly, the turnout is abysmal for local elections. So you could actually sway way more effectively your local elections than you probably could, say, like a federal one. But yeah, that would be my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect point. There was, I forget the exact race, but it was in New York. It was a race for like DA, and a certain borough, and it got decided like on a razor's edge. It was like 20 votes. It was like incredibly small. They did like recount. This wasn't too long ago. It was like a year or two ago. But it was like a progressive who was trying to get in, and she lost actually. And it was devastating. But like it was just a few people, because a few people had just come out. Because again, and I've been saying this previously, that people feel just so disempowered, and there's rational reasons to feel disempowered within our system. But like, one, just voting is a good way to do it. But then, you feel like, well, it's just my vote, right? It's just one vote, and you may exercise it, but like, still, like it feels like it's beyond you. But this is actually doing something about that. Imagine, again, we're talking about state and local elections, where in a tough race, it can be decided by a very few people. You can be the difference that brings over those few people, right? Like within that election that I'm thinking of, like imagine if there had just been a few more canvassers knocking on a few more doors, right? And just reminding people the election was going to happen, right? Like I myself, I'm a political animal, but I don't, I don't keep track of like all elections. It's not that I forget, if it's especially not like a national election, I forget sometimes too. But then I get like a mailer, which is something campaigns do as well. Or sometimes people have come to my house and they talk to me. I'm like, yeah, that's right. We do have a local election coming up. And that gets a person like me who is ready to vote out when I otherwise might not have, because life is busy, right? Mm-hmm. And you just being that person who comes there with a friendly face and letting them know can make the difference. It has happened before. Believe me on that.
Yeah, especially with Wisconsin. So this is, and I'm sure you all have talked about it already, but it's so important to reiterate. Wisconsin's a battleground state, so it is a state that is constantly up for competition in every presidential election, and it is uniquely bipartisan. You know, it went for Obama in 08 and 12. It went for Trump in 16. It went for Biden in 2020. It again, when you vote or when you register to vote in Wisconsin, you can't identify with a particular party. So we have to turn to things like Pew Research. And Pew Research has concluded again and again that Wisconsin's population is pretty much split down the middle, like 42% liberal, 42% conservative, 16% moderate. This election is like so uniquely tipped. You have a Democratic governor, you have a Republican legislature. One of its chambers has a supermajority. If they get a supermajority in the second chamber of Congress, Governor Evers's veto is kind of like Governor Beshear's in Kentucky. It's useless. So this Supreme Court case or this Supreme Court election is vital. We have an opportunity to not only hold the line, but actually move it left, right? We can tip the balance of this court. You think about a state like that is so split down the middle and so bipartisan, and Republicans have used every trick at their disposal to try to enshrine a supermajority. Like they have gerrymandered the hell out of the state, even though it's 50-50, to make it so that they have a supermajority for all time, right?
Yeah, no, if their legislature gets 50% of the, if a Republican legislature gets 50% of the vote in Wisconsin, they get 65% of the seats.
See?
If Democrats get 50% of the vote, they get 35% of the seats. It is considered the most gerrymandered state in the United States.
And the fact that it has national implications, River Bojexi, because that's the other thing too. It's like this is something that I complain about quite a bit on my channel, which is this idea that, especially in the United States, I can't speak to Canada, but in the United States, conservatives are systemically advantaged at every level. They're less popular. There are fewer of them. Their ideas are less popular, but systemically they are advantaged at every damn level. 30 state legislatures here in the United States out of 50 belong to Republicans. We have a regressively conservative supermajority on the United States Supreme Court. We have a 50-50, well, a 51-49 split Senate, but the 51 Democrats represent 40 million more people than their Republicans. So it's like, and so to your point, it's like Democrats have to constantly overperform in every goddamn election just to break even. And Republicans don't fight fair. They know in a fair fight they'd lose. So what do? They min-max. They do everything at their disposal to maximize systemic advantages. And that's why this election is so damn important. You can't just trust them. Well, if Judge Kelly gets in, we can trust that he'll be a fair and impartial jurist. Hell no. The Republican Party in Wisconsin is as bad faith as any other Republican Party in any state. They will fight to win. We have to win this race.
I mean, on top of that, like, we have a very brief window of opportunity here to challenge the electoral maps in Wisconsin based on the new districting that was done using the 2020 census. And so currently the only path forward to ungerrymander Wisconsin rides entirely on the outcome of this state Supreme Court race, because it's either going to be Dan Kelly, who has said that he doesn't believe it is his role to actually rule on that issue. He believes that he needs to send it back to the state legislature in Wisconsin, which is controlled by Republicans. So you know what their answer is going to be. And then you have Judge Janet, who has said that she has looked at the data and she believes that the weight of the districts is unfair and needs to be reassessed and readdressed. And really the mechanism for that is the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. And that is just, that is about as close to like, that's not like a left-leaning opinion either. That's just looking at the raw numbers and data. And it's unfortunate that has been politicized, but like that is how bad things are in Wisconsin right now.
and I think it's important to stress this too. The tenure for a Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin is 10 years. So we have another shot at this in maybe 10 years. So, this is the time to make the difference.
And a lot can happen in 10 years.
Yeah. It's so much is riding on this, like whether or not like trans people have rights in Wisconsin, whether or not women have rights to abortion in Wisconsin, whether or not like representative democracy actually gets to exist in Wisconsin. But not only that, like whether or not, because again, the scheme for Wisconsin to replace its electors in the 2020 election was only denied by one vote from the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. And if that vote goes to Kelly, like he's not going to say, "Oh, don't do that in 2024." Like, no, he's going to be all for subverting democracy. He literally got paid $120,000 by the state Republican Party to do that. That's
the thing that, again, I feel like it's important to stress, because unfortunately we all know a lot of well-intentioned moderates who are genuinely under the opinion that both sides are kind of like, whatever, they both fight to win but they really don't. I wish Democrats had a fraction of the killer instinct, the political killer instinct that Republicans have. We have no reason to believe that the GOP in 2024, they have no limiting principle. We have no reason to believe that if we're in a situation in 2024 as we were in 2020, because right now it's looking like Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee, right? Unless Ron DeSantis announces that he runs and he manages to pull the Hailest of all Hail Marys, he's going to be the nominee. And he's already made it abundantly clear in his campaign rhetoric and his speeches. We thought he was going for broke in 2020. This man is like deranged. Like it's a campaign of vengeance. He will pull out all the stops. We have no reason to believe. It would be foolish to just naively believe, listen, okay, they learned their lesson. This election isn't that big of a deal. I mean, I hope Judge Janet wins, but if Kelly gets in there, he's learned his lesson. No, we have absolutely no reason to believe that.
Never, never, never. I mean, and I'll say this before I bow out for the evening, but I mean, it's incredibly important to realize that, you were saying like, we shouldn't give Republicans and conservatives the benefit of the doubt in the future, but just looking at the ongoing suit with Dominion and Fox News right now, we see that they took every single opportunity, even during the 2020 election, to call that into question, even though they knew it was false. But the conservative apparatus does not care. The institutional power behind conservatives does not care, because it is power for power's sake. And they are really the only party that gets that and fights like hell to keep it and expand that power. So we need to fight like hell right on back and make this push. Like, I can't keep expressing that I'm expressing that in somewhat panicked terms, but seriously, like, it's really important that we emphasize this.
Hell, I would argue that the only lesson that the conservatives learn is, oh, well, I'm not in jail and I didn't win, so clearly I didn't go hard enough.
Right.
Exactly.
This was scrimmage. This was practice for 2024. 100%.
Lance,
then you contrast that with how places like Brazil handle when their former conservative leaders attempt a fascistic coup. I mean, they go all out. Within 2 weeks, there's like a Supreme Court investigation, all this thing. I mean, like, we just have no appetite for actual, I guess what I would call a political knife fight, because that's what I feel like it is. I feel like we are in an existential crisis. I think it was like in 2020, some of you may have the stats better. It's like 200 plus initiatives by the Republican Party across the 50 states to like impose like anti-trans bills. Like it was like 200 in 2022, and in 2023 state legislation, it's like an even higher rate. I mean, they're going for broke on everything. It's a full court press.
Yeah,
Something Sun Tzu said, if you don't have a system of rewards and punishment, then everything gets fucked up. Hey, look, everything's fucked up. I'm sorry, Jack.
Oh no, just as an FYI, in 2023 alone, there have been over 400 anti-trans bills proposed so far.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's
That's
bad.
That's double what last year was, right? Like
Yeah,
already all of last year, which was a record too.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous.
But Lance, I was just going to ask you, what's kind of your perspective as like a Canadian looking down and seeing like all of this?
What's going on? I wanted to answer your question. You were asking what do conservatives have an advantage in Canada? They don't. It's the French who have an advantage in Canada. That's not even a joke. It's a weird thing, but Quebec has so many seats in Parliament in our parliamentary system that if a prime minister is French Canadian, it will sway an election. Like Justin Trudeau, all the horrible things he does, from his Indigenous rights problems to doing blackface multiple times, none of that will seem to matter as long as he can speak French. Like that'll really sway an election in Canada, which is just a wild thing. But in terms of what's happening in the U.S., obviously, I hope you all know we're terrified up here about what's going on in America all the time. Everyone is.
Hey, sorry, in here.
That's why Willow is wearing a Canada shirt right now.
It's just for you, bud. Just for you, friend.
No,
totally not because it's what I wore last night to sleep.
What else? We have a instead of the CIA or the FBI, we have a thing called CSIS, and CSIS already has articles on potential civil wars in the United States, the rise of fascism, like public articles you can see on their website where it's like, if America like fully falls, this could be very bad for Canada. I was like, well, obviously, it would be terrible up here. Yes,
it's going to be bad everywhere if that happens.
Lance, to your point, there was an article. Probably it's got to be close to a year ago, but it was written by a Canadian political scientist and threat expert called Thomas Homer Dixon, and he's like an expert on democratic destabilization and whatnot. He wrote this really terrifying article in one of your publications up there, basically saying that a lot of political scientists and threat experts believe that America is in an inordinate amount of danger of becoming a right-wing authoritarian regime. So I mean, like you have even like international intelligentsia that are basically ringing the bells, like "Holy shit, people! Holy shit!" You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the world we live in.
So, Lance, hello. My name is Prime. I'm not sure I don't think we've ever met before, but nice to meet you.
We've rated each other a couple times. You run a really good debate show on Twitch.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I did. Yeah, but. I wanted to, because I didn't realize you were Canadian, which makes me rethink everything about you. But
fair, yeah. The only acceptable prejudice to have is against Canadians. It's a made-up country. Make fun of Canada, chat. Normalize making fun of Canada.
But yeah, like so we were because another Canadian was here previously, and we have been talking about this, and yeah, I'm actually curious, like, what your perspective is here, like I know Canada gets like a lot of news from America, a lot of media, since we're so very much interconnected. But does it? Sorry, now I'm getting background. Is that from you?
I think you're
that was me.
echoing.
My thing just disconnected. Oh, can you hear me?
Do you know "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins? Could you sing that right now while you've got that echo?
Oh, that would have been perfect.
That would have been.
But I was going to say that like how real does it feel, right? And it might be a hard question to answer, but like how like does it feel tangible what happens here in the U.S., right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because even for people within our borders, right, within our localities, like elections can seem far away, but like to you, and maybe it's not fair to ask you because you're a political animal, right? But like, does it feel like tangible to you?
The answer is yes, and even normies, huge ass yes, massive yes in Canada. Oh yeah, like Canadians follow American politics really closely because we're each other's largest trading partners. You know, you get a lot of our energy, fresh water, lumber, all that kind of stuff, oil. That comes all from Alberta, BC, all that kind of shit, and we buy a ton of shit from the United States, including products and refined petroleum and stuff like that.
And
so
you gave
yeah,
us Jordan
everyone
Peterson
cares.
too. Thank you very much for that, buddy. Thanks a lot,
Jordan
man.
Peterson, Steven Crowder, Lauren Southern, Lauren Chen, Stefan Molyneux, Gavin McInnes.
I never
You're
thought
just
that
digging
America
your own
would be
grave
getting
here,
a short
bud.
end of the
I
stick
know,
there, but
well,
you've made the case.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, like, to be totally honest, everyone here is terrified. Yeah, absolutely terrified. We don't have an overwhelmingly conservative. The conservatives in Canada would be considered like Joe Manchins. The Conservative Party of Canada is kind of Joe Manchin-y. So think of that. That's kind of what conservatives are like, for better or for worse. So even they, I don't think would want to see America fully spiral into like fascism. And it's just like the way things have been ramping up so quickly lately, where it's just like you've seen the discourse move from, hey, anti like LGBTQ stuff doesn't play well politically. Look at the midterms. Didn't like cause the red wave, right? They were so hyper focused on this, and yet that didn't like demolish the Democratic Party when statistically it should have. So that doesn't play well, but that doesn't matter to like a large part of the right, especially the Christian fascist right or the Christian nationalist right. They're just barreling towards that. It's like, we're just going to ramp everything up nonstop. This is our cause. Yeah, so that is obviously horrifying to see. It's not great. I'll just say that.
No, and especially when you consider how our system of government is. Again, I keep going back to this because this is something I constantly yell about at people offline and online. I try to make the case like, look, one of the many ways in which conservatives and Republicans are systemically advantaged in the United States, I can't speak to Canada or anywhere else, but certainly in the United States, is even from a sheer philosophical burden, right? So progressives and the left, whether you agree with their policy prescriptions or not, and it's entirely fair if you disagree, they are trying to build something. They're trying to progress. They're trying to move the needle. Whereas just from a sheer philosophical perspective, conservatives are just kicking their feet back and either trying to actively tear shit down or thwart progress. So even from the beginning, the conceit, the left just has a harder burden from the very beginning. Our framework of government is absolutely advantaged towards conservatism. You think of, again, great in theory, separation of powers and all these things when opposition is supposed to be loyal to one another. But think of like abolishing slavery. It took us 80 years after the formation of the United States to formally abolish slavery, and then like another 80 to deal with redlining and Jim Crow and segregation and all these things. Even for like the most moral, and a civil war, right? Even the most morally righteous cause in this country, it takes forever to make any sort of progress. So it's not even just the nuts and bolts of state legislatures and how they're comprised. Even from at every level, conservatives are advantaged in this country, and the expectation is so different for them. Like, it pisses me off when every time a Democrat here in the United States is interviewed, they're always asked, how can you work with the other side? What can you do? President Biden gets this all the time. Mr. President, what are you going to do to reach across the other aisle? Kevin McCarthy never gets that question. Nobody in the Republican Party ever gets that goddamn question because we just don't expect them. Nobody expects them to work with the other side. It's always Democrats. Democrats have to overperform electorally, and Democrats have to overperform in terms of government, like actual governance. And Republicans are just playing this game on easy mode. It's so frustrating.
Hell, they'll kick the anthill, and then when somebody else gets bit by the fire ants, they'll blame Democrats for doing it.
Yeah, why didn't you stop me from kicking the anthill, Willow? Why didn't
Okay.
you stop me? That's basically what it is.
Speaking of kicking the anthill, I'm gonna pull. Oh,
And the only way we can, again, move the needle on that is to win I mean, really every race we possibly can, but this one again, like battleground state, 10 electoral votes. This one is huge. This would be a solid step in the right direction towards slowly pushing back on this kind of party.
just pulling Vaush in here, and
Vaush.
we got Vaush in the house. whenever he wants to unmute and undeafen. But
yeah. So continuing on with what Josiah said. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
Oh, hello. Hi.
Hi, Vaush.
hey,
All right.
Vaush.
Yeah, there goes the neighborhood.
It took me a second. I had myself deafened. How are we doing?
Doing all right.
Yeah, we've been in full swing for a few hours now, trying to get out the word for folks to come and volunteer to canvass and phone bank, because the election day is April 4th, and that's coming up. And you can canvass and phone bank regardless of where you are in the world. Although
Phone banking. You're telling me it's actually possible to do political good from your phone? Can you fill me in on that? What's going on with that?
Well, it all started with the man named Alexander Graham Bell, okay? And
Oh my.
now
We're going way back.
Yeah, you can call basically from wherever you are in the world, you can sign up to volunteer to phone bank, and you can do it. I believe, Prime, you've done it before. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go anywhere. You can put on your gamer headset. And
I've done
start
it.
calling people.
It's very user friendly. It's very fun. It's very easy.
Yeah.
It's all automated. Like a machine does the whole thing. You're just watching a program, like dial a number, you talk to someone, whenever they hang up, dials the next number until you talk to the next person.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
You don't even have to wear pants to do it. If that's a deal
Nope.
breaker for you, you can just kick back and yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Chat.
but yeah.
Chat.
So like.
Oh, I'm just making sure they know.
Okay, yeah. So I was just gonna say that yes, it's I've done it before, and Lance as well. It's super easy, right? It sounds more intimidating. Like I mean, I know I was a bit more intimidated before I did it, but then it's an automated program. You don't have to use your own phone. That's another thing we need to let people know, right? Because you might think, well, phone banking, I'm going to have to use my own phone. I use my minutes or whatever, right? None of that.
Nope.
Instead, you could just log into like a website, browser, and if you got like a mic, if you got headphones, right? Or some of them might be able to like might be able to do it from your phone, but not use your phone minutes. In any case, right? Like you have a system in front of you that gives you a script, tells you like what to say initially, right, to get the party started, and depends on which system you're using. But the system I had previously used, it went down like a branching path, right? So first, like, did they hang up on you immediately? No? Okay. Click yes or no. If they are talking, is it the right person? Because, you're going off the phone list, might not be the wrong person. So if it's the correct person, okay, right? And it keeps going off from there, right? Like, did they want more information about the election? So you enter that information, just click, 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 as you're saying the script. But then, of course, you get a chance to have like a human interaction with someone.
So
you get to just talk to them.
Branching paths. So what you're telling me is this is a lot like the hit game series Dark Souls.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and it
The
all
dialogue
wraps back
trees.
around eventually. Yeah.
Vaush, aren't you a Dark Souls streamer? That's what you do predominantly, right?
That's
you're just
my main.
now.
Yeah, this is I'm hearing about this politics thing today. It sounds really cool though. This canvassing business.
Yes.
I really
You
hope
should
my chat gets
consider
involved.
like talking about politics more and maybe not Dark Souls. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, we could start kind of bridging with analogies. Like what we're doing right now, kind of, is sort of like we're linking the flame, by preventing the Republicans from getting a Supreme Court majority. It'd be quite bad if that happened.
Yeah, it's like real life Dark
mean,
Souls.
Yeah, I know that Dark Souls is supposed to be a hard game, but you know what the real Dark Souls is? Politics.
I thought you were gonna say humanity.
I'm not a Dark Soul. I'm not a gamer. Period. I've never actually played Dark Souls, but like just the
You
snippets
can't
that I've
say that on
seen.
Twitch. You'll get roasted.
I feel
just
like
fake it
it's
till you
true.
make
It's
it.
true. Listen,
Oh,
I'm
no.
no cap. I've never played it, but I feel like Mitch McConnell, the Senate's resident Eldritch abomination, would fit very well in the Dark Souls mythos.
I think he was actually under all of that armor for Executioner Smough. back in the day.
Judge Janet
Well, as
is
one of
the
the
player
pilgrims.
character. She's going to use her summoning bell, right, to call in you for help to assist her in taking down the boss, being David Kelly. David Kelly?
Daniel Kelly.
Daniel Kelly. No, David Kelly is the producer. Daniel Kelly, excuse me.
Boston Legal. Are you Boston Legal fan? David E.
I
Kelly?
am, actually. I love it. Oh, my God. I'm sorry. We can
Phenomenal
talk
show.
about that later. That's amazing. But I wanted to talk more on, unless Vaush wanted to jump in and say things.
Yeah, Vaush, did you introduce yourself? Or did you just come in and said, "Hi, I'm Vaush"?
Yeah, I'm Vaush. I'm a prominent Dark Souls Bloodborne streamer. First person to beat Bloodborne, actually, NA.
It's true.
The Koreans got me by about 6 seconds, but
Blindfolded too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh well, obviously it doesn't count.
He only plays blindfolded. It's pretty wild. I've seen it.
It's I'm hearing about this politics thing. It's pretty cool. It turns out that by sheer coincidence, there are many people in my community who've actually canvassed before with Progressive Victory, and I have heard near ubiquitously. I say near ubiquitously because it's kind of a common turn of phrase. What I actually mean is ubiquitously positive experiences in terms of getting to meet new people, have a good time, feel like you're making a difference. It turns out that if you're a politics streamer or like me, a Dark Souls streamer, engaging with this stuff online is kind of a way of engagement. But if you're just watching that 24/7, I feel like if you're not doing anything with all those feelings you have about the direction the country's going, I can imagine it might be kind of a bit of a downer at times. So I highly encourage people who are watching to give the canvassing bit a shot. It's not as scary as they think. I've heard people with severe social anxiety in my community went out and still managed to have a good time because obviously, Progressive Victory is dedicated to making this experience as accessible as possible because that brings more people out. And if you like going, you'll go again. And there are lots of folks who have gone again. So it's all good, and it's a worthwhile cause. Not even to speak of it being fun. It's also good to do, like on a moral level.
Yeah, if you like democracy and civil rights and such, you probably should get involved.
Yeah, I did some canvassing during the special election for Doug Jones in Alabama a couple years back. I had a great time. Like, it was pretty scary at first, but it was fine. Most of it was just informing people, hey, there's a special election coming up. Do you know where you can vote? And they're like, no. It's like, okay, this is the voting district you're in. Here's where you go. Do you need a ride? We can arrange that for you. And it wasn't bad. And especially in a time with like my community is a bunch of trans people, largely. And as you've probably heard inklings of, we're kind of a political scapegoat right now, just a little. And hearing about that all the time and not doing anything about it, it sucks. It's overwhelming. It's hard to deal with. And just if you just can't sit there and be focused on it. Sometimes you got to disconnect. Sometimes you just got to get out there and do something. You got a phone bank. You got a canvas. If you feel like you're doing something, you're not standing still, and that's important.
Well,
Yeah,
and
Vaush brought up that it's not just for extroverts either, because like again in Milwaukee, I guarantee you, I mean, I didn't go around and poll the audience, but I guarantee you, if you asked most of the people who were actually canvassing, most of them would describe themselves as introverts. And I know several of them are like, I never imagine that not only would I be phone banking, I would actually be, knocking on doors, putting my face in front of other people. And they liked it. It was thrilling for them. It felt like, at least according to them, that it encouraged them to get out of their shells in a way that they might not otherwise if there wasn't something like this motivating them. If it was just like, go out with friends or go bar hopping or whatever, then I'll probably just stay home. But something like this motivating them, a lot of these people are introverts and they enjoyed themselves.
Well, and I know like a lot of the people in a lot of the communities that are here are trans or have loved ones who are trans or are just generally trans allies. And like there's a lot of that riding on the line for the state of Wisconsin for this particular election. Because Wisconsin is only really held back from being like a full-blown like anti-LGBTQ like sundown town, but as a state, and it's scary. Like earlier this year, the Republicans in the state essentially voted to legalize conversion therapy of trans people. There was a ban that was in place since 2020, and Republicans overturned that because they have the majority of the state legislature. And the only way that that is going to change is by making sure that the gerrymandering in Wisconsin gets overturned. And the only way that that happens is if Judge Janet wins the swing seat on the state Supreme Court. This election is literally the key to unfucking the entire state of Wisconsin, if I can
That
be
should have
blunt
been her
about
motto.
It was a single election when it got fucked, right? I'm thinking about this, like the history of Wisconsin, like when Scott Walker got in. I'm not sure if that was the same election or a different election when the was it 2010 when that happened, because that was like a census year, right? And it turned over to Republicans. Republicans took that state house, and then they gerrymandered, and the effect has been devastating, like ever since. So, like one state, one local election or state election can have massive effects, right? Like, people, there were a certain number of people, Democrats within that state, who on that year decided, I'm going to stay home. Right? And they've been dealing with the consequences of that ever since. And a great way of getting people to show up is by canvassing, is by getting involved. It is the most effective way. We were talking about this earlier, that there are a number of ways that get to get people involved within an election. Like the one is ads, right? People understand ads, but like that is less motivating, except maybe in the negative sense, voting against someone. But having that actual human contact with someone in terms of phone banking, and then canvassing, right? Canvassing being number one, that turns people up. It drives traffic towards the election campaign. And I wanted to say one more thing. I was saying this to like Lance previously, talking about that election in New York, because I went and found that. In New York, there was a election for DA, right? Tiffany Caban, she ended up losing. I believe she was the progressive candidate. She lost her opponent, Melinda Katz, and she lost by 60 votes. 60 votes. I looked up the this is for a Queens DA. Yeah, I looked up the population, 2.7 million people within that borough. There were 61 votes there. Votes there.
A couple times over.
Exactly. If she had had more resources and a better ground game, she could have gotten those votes.
Yep.
There were people who just weren't aware or weren't motivated, but that could have changed with a ground game. And you can be a part of that for this election, which is indeed very important.
And just to connect with that, when you do a phone banking session, how many people do you generally talk to? Like just one? How many?
You can sign up for different periods in time. So you can sign up, say, I want to do it for 1 hour, 2 hours. And in that time, you may have a really good session where you just roll through a bunch. And you might find one where you get stuck in a conversation where you're talking to someone. And it's like this, delightful old grandma who wants to give you her special ketchup recipe. She's like, oh, you're going to love it. Taste. It's got prunes. And like, you got to be nice. You got to, don't like, a vote is a vote, and be very nice and respect your elders. And people should be nicer to older people in general. So that's all good and base. But I'm just saying generally, in terms of how many people you'll get through, it varies. It varies. But what shocked me was that even people who I would have phone calls with, where they're like clearly politically opposed to me, like, ideologically we could not be further away, they were still mostly friendly. They were still mostly like, I'm sorry, son, I'm a conservative, and that's just who I am, but I appreciate you trying to help out democracy. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that was nice. I would have expected, like, my experiences on Twitch and talking to other streamers and stuff, so I expected it was going to be a little bit more rough. It's lovely. It's fun. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, you'll have a great time.
Well, generally, what I was first of all, that was delightful, and I want grandmas to give me their ketchup recipes because I'm sure it's better than whatever ketchup I'm eating. But second of all, like, it is completely plausible that between now and April 4th, if you were to volunteer your time to phone bank, you could talk to far more than just 60 people. And if you're changing the minds of any one person, you're also statistically likely changing the minds of people in that household as well, regarding whether they're going to go vote, and possibly even changing like their spouse's mind, on who they're going to vote for. So when we're talking about the margins, and keep in mind, Wisconsin is a very thin margin state. Like, you alone volunteering could help to make the difference, whether that is as a canvasser or as a phone banker. So we're really, really encouraging people to get out there. And again, the canvassing date is on April 2nd. So if you can make it out to Wisconsin on April 2nd, you can.
What will be the
canvass on
link?
the ground.
Would there be a link possibly to learn more information about canvassing? I don't know.
Wow, indeed. You can use !canvas in chat to get a link for that. And if you are interested in phone banking, you can use !phone bank to learn more about that and volunteer.
I think that a definite advantage we have, or maybe a sort of change in things, is that, if you took in every state a total proportion of people who vote which way every year and didn't vote was a candidate, they would win in every state. And that's because we have a lot of independents. There's a lot of disaffected people. There's a lot of people. I think by and large, there are people who just don't care, because a lot of people just don't care, and it's irrational for them not to care, but they don't, and whatever. That's life. But a lot of people,
Apathy wins.
Yeah, it's just how people are. But a lot of it's also disillusionment. They voted before, they cared before, the government's not doing what it claims to be able to do, and they sort of fall off. And I do think, right now the direction the GOP is taking is psychotic. It's monstrous. It's dangerous. But it's also very loud and very evidently bad to people who aren't ideologically in that camp. I think, because we kind of saw this back in 2020 with the record number of people voting for Biden, I think this might energize people who might otherwise be more independent or moderate leaning, because it's harder to be moderate when you check on social media and you've got people Sieg Heiling all over the place. It tends to motivate people. So my hope would be that would make the process of talking to nonpartisan right people a little easier. And hey, even for those partisan right people, not all of them go along with the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
There was recently some polling done on whether or not people from various parties would support legislation to ban gender affirming care for youth. I mean, we're not even talking adults here, we're talking youth. And of them, I think it was something like 30% of Republicans responding would oppose such a ban. That is a surprising amount of incongruity within the party that is otherwise so lockstep. So I don't know, a little bit of optimism. I'm hoping this motivates some positive change.
Oh yeah, like I think that we're in a period where I think that from what I've seen from the 2022 midterms, it seems like conservatives have overplayed their hand a bit when it comes to things like abortion. That has now opened kind of a Pandora's box that they are unable to really sidestep, and you can see
the dog that caught the car.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's Dan Kelly, for example, has been trying to like downplay his support of anti-abortion policies by just saying, "Oh, I wouldn't ever consider giving an opinion on abortion unless I was ruling on it," and it's like, My man, you're literally endorsed by Wisconsin Right to Life. Like you have a picture on their website.
And it's harder to get away with casual hypocrisy when it gets embedded into law. There are lots of Republicans who have done abortion's bad, but my daughter's abortion, okay, that was special. That was different. And you can
special.
you know what I'm talking about. You can get away with that double standard when it's not illegal to have an abortion. But when your daughter gets pregnant, you think like, oh, okay. And then you check your phone or something. It's, oh, great, 10 years if we even try. We can't even leave the state for it. All of a sudden, you can't get away with being the, one toe in the pool kind of conservative anymore. Now you're face to face with the consequences of your ideology. And while the average Republican candidate can afford to get it done quietly, the average Republican voter can't.
Well, and
out there found the car.
Not only can they not afford to get it done quietly, but if you are politically unaligned you can't avoid the news stories about it. You know, like
No.
it's like every couple of weeks. Oh, there was a woman who was sexually assaulted, and now she's being forced to carry the baby to term. Or like even worse, a child sexually assaulted and is now being forced to carry it to term. Or oh, here's a woman who has a genetic disease, and like if she gives birth, she will die. She can't get an abortion.
Thus forcing, by the way, GOP like state senators or whatever to go like, well, you know, if God wants a 12-year-old to be pregnant, like because
Yeah,
then they have
exactly.
to defend it, and it's like, oh well,
Yeah.
thank you for the news clips, dipshit. You know, it's radicalizing, unironically.
I love how Lindsey Graham sold out Mitch McConnell when it comes to all this. Like Lindsey Graham's like, I want abortions for the entire country. Mitch McConnell's like, what the fuck are you doing, motherfucker? What are you saying right now? No, this is not politically popular. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like the conservatives, like any conservative I've talked to, is just like, oh yeah, no, they'll definitely put in exceptions for rape and children and things like that. And no, motherfucker, no, they won't.
Well,
it's part of their platform.
And even if they do, those exceptions are practically worthless because, oh, well, how long will it take for you to figure out whether or not you have a baby? What if you have faulty pregnancy tests? You know, like, well, then you're kind of fucked because guess what? You don't have the time to actually get that done. Or like, hey, if you were raped, well, they're only going to allow you to get that abortion if you can prove that you were raped. Look at all of those untested rape kits that every state has.
The most generous, like, red state abortion laws give you just enough time to call an Uber to Planned Parenthood, only for you to, like, the time to elapse. You know what I mean? Like, it's like 16 weeks or whatever it is, and like the cutoff for a lot of people is it's ridiculous.
Yeah, the moment after you're raped, they hit a chess clock right next to them, and they're like, "All right, go." Yeah.
That's so fucked.
One state is about to shorten it. I forget which one. It was like I think they were shortening it to 6 weeks, but I have to look it up. But in any case, like I think that like I'm going to be honest. I think that the
Florida.
state of affairs is it Florida? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. What a surprise. But I think that the state of affairs, right? You know, we should point the finger our direction, and that in the intervening years since Roe, like we have been on the defensive, meaning like the broad left. We've been on the defensive as to keeping what we have rather than advancing it and solidifying it. Right? Why isn't there a federal law saying, you know, guaranteeing the right to abortion? Because we didn't make that push. Now things are the way they are, but elections like this, these matter, right? On the path of correcting this mistake, and it was a mistake on the lefty side, right? Is these tiny elections, these moments in times where you put someone crucial in place. Sometimes it's not always clear who's going to be crucial, but now we do, right? Like now there's a neon sign. This is a crucial election. So we would implore you to actually be involved with this. And it's actually quite simple to do so. Phone banking is super easy. You don't have to leave your house. I hate the sun too, right? You're in good company. And for those of you to brave the outside world where like dogs and bees are, you can also canvass if you can make it to Wisconsin. But you'll be making a difference. And like it may not be obvious immediately, but you're going to be watching some sort of contentious political fight happening, right? And it's going to come down to Wisconsin Supreme Court. It's happened before.
Yeah.
So, and then you'll know I made a difference.
Have you all discussed the Wisconsin abortion law that Governor Evers says that he will not enforce, but he's in like legal, like, so Governor Evers, who's a Democrat, and his attorney general, who's also a Democrat, say they will not enforce. It's an 1848 abortion law. Like this thing goes back, like it's insane. It's pre-Civil War, and
Jesus.
Was never
the states-
repealed.
Yeah, never repealed. It was effectively cock-blocked by Roe v. Wade, but now that the Dobbs decision stripped that, it is technically on the books. Now, thank God, we've got a Democratic governor who's like, nah, I'm not enforcing that. But he's in the middle of like legal battles with like district attorneys who do want to enforce that law. And that means it will make its way up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So
How
get
bad
somebody
is
like
it, the
Dan
law
Kelly on
itself?
there who is like the thought of, I'm pretty sure Dan Kelly wakes up every morning invigorated by the thought of forcing women to carry fetuses to term and then denying them like the social safety net to help raise it afterwards. If that man is on the Supreme Court and he keeps that right-wing advantage, that 1846 or 1849 draconian law, it will be enforced.
Yeah,
It's
the
considered Viagra.
well, the 1849 ban makes it a felony for anyone in Wisconsin to provide an abortion, and the only exception is a vaguely worded provision for, let's see, exceptions when a mother's health is at risk. And no one in the
isn't that
state knows
kind?
what that means, so they're
And
just not doing
Republicans
them.
notoriously care about the health of mothers.
And
They
this
are-
is perfect.
yeah.
Generous.
That part's important. This because if you are on the fence on this issue and you say, well, at the very least, the life of the mother, right? That's the exception. That's the one I care about, right? But actually, in practice, this makes things nearly impossible. Because then a doctor has to prove that this person was going to die, and it's not so easy. There's not like a sign that appears on a woman's head that when she's like near death.
Yeah,
right? And you have situations. Yeah,
It turns out there's not a health bar that appears
There's
above
not a
a
health
woman's
bar. There's
head
not a
when
health bar.
giving birth. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
remember,
or stamina meter.
health bars in Dark Souls are only for bosses. For
Yeah.
regular mobs, you don't see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, but there is this it's not so clear, right? And so a doctor has to decide like against like their this person's life or their career and their freedom.
Yeah.
If it's a felony. So
It can
when you
bankrupt you in the U.S. too, right? Like if you have to give birth, isn't it in some states? If you don't have health insurance, can it be like $10,000, $15,000? It's like, yeah, you can be bankrupt for life or give birth. Your choice.
Yeah.
Seems
It's
to be fucked up.
well, and that's the thing, right? Like any of these exceptions that are added to these abortion bills aren't real. Because doctors generally aren't going to be willing to risk a felony conviction. Because
Chilling effect.
they like I don't know. Would you be willing to risk a felony conviction when like the ability to prove something is very much not decided? But I think most
well,
people would.
Absolutely.
We see this exact same behavior with like the "Don't Say Gay" law down in Florida, right? Where it like legislative ambiguity and bad lawmaking is actually an effective tool on their side, because technically the wording of the "Don't Say Gay" bill is incomprehensible and would put everyone on the books for for a conviction, because you'd be like, oh, my husband, or whatever else, like anything, right? Talk about George Washington. Oh, did he have a wife? Ah, jail. It's nonsensical. But obviously, like in reality, the fact that it's nonsensical doesn't mean anything, because the people who will be carrying out these convictions, from the cops to the judges, will be doing so in an ideologically motivated fashion. It's like that. What was the state? Was it Oklahoma, where they say drag performances or any kind of gender performances are now in the category of like adult entertainment? Was that which state? Was that?
Tennessee?
I thought that was Wisconsin.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
I think it was Tennessee. And if you actually read the wording of the bill, it's like anything which has gender bending as like a component of comedy, like it would get Doubtfire, like it would get Mrs. Doubtfire, any classic Shakespeare play it would get. But none of those things are going to get charged, obviously.
Well,
because
yeah,
the point
depending
is-
on the selective enforcement, it could be when
Yeah.
a woman wears pants.
Yeah, literally, and that
Mhm.
used to be also on the books illegal. Like New York City had the 3 gender incongruent clothing law for getting arrested.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that any law that requires or that like depends on Republican largesse, that's probably not a good state to be in. If a law is written in such a way that you're basically at the mercy of Republican interpretation, which is selective on its best day and hypocritical all the time, it's a pretty bad state to be in.
Well, and this is
Also,
what
we should say brass tacks about this. If you're worried about the life of the mother, that's I would say statistically going to be in a situation in which the person did not want to seek an abortion. Like that's going to happen in the 8th or 9th month when it's like a tragedy. This is a horrifying thing that takes place, and the mother unfortunately has to choose between whether or not it's the life of her or the child, the hardest decision someone can make. That's what they're most likely to talk about. When you set a law up like that, it's not to protect women. Ultimately it's like, oh, we do make rare exceptions. Hey, we're going to be nice. We'll make an exception for rape. Yes, that's how gallant we're going to be in this fucking medieval procedure. Like, it's wild.
Well,
There was a law in South Carolina. Are you all familiar with this? It was proposed by 21 state Republicans that would make women who seek an abortion eligible for the death penalty.
Yep.
21 state Republican
The
lawmakers.
pro-life
supported it.
party. The pro-life
Yeah.
team.
Well,
Very pro-life.
and to kind of
Hell yeah.
bring this back around, like, this is part of the ongoing conservative effort to subvert democracy. When you have all of your laws worded in a very vague way, it gives power to whatever official is making those ultimate decisions, right? And then whoever's at the very top has the ultimate say over all those other enforcement mechanisms, right? And so when we have a state like Wisconsin, where the map is gerrymandered to effectively be like to make it a soft impossibility or improbability of like an overturning of like the majority in the state legislature, for example. And you pair that with vague wording in the legal system, well, that's just empowering the worst people to essentially make life or death decisions. Empowering the party of small government, empowering a cadre of officials to make life or death decisions for citizens.
I bet you want to say the party of smog just then, like from Lord of the Rings.
Well, that too.
That too, yeah, definitely. They all be all for the Balrog. Yeah, I again, like, there's so many people who are watching and listening right now. I know there are a lot of people here, and I know there's a portion of you, right, who have some free time, right? Another thing that I didn't say previously about like phone banking is that like you get to decide your own schedule. You're not like stuck there, right? You can decide when you're free. Like oftentimes they make you, maybe sign a list so. When people might be around to do it.
Yeah, there's not like a hitman coming around to like break your kneecaps.
Oh, exactly, certainly, yeah. But like, just like in between the time, if you have time when you come home from work or before you're going to bed, right? Like, if you have time in your schedule, they can fit you in so that you can make a difference, right? Even if it's just a half hour. Within that half hour, as Lance was saying before, you can hit a lot of numbers. It's automated for you. So you're not like they're dialing numbers and making sure, oh, did I hit the wrong number and anything? You're not doing that, right? The system does that for you, and you're making a very large impact within a very small amount of time. So if you have a half hour, just give it a try. 30 minutes, give it a try. Try phone banking, right? And if it's not for you, you can walk away at least saying you have the experience, and you can do like the whole stolen valor thing, like, oh, I made the difference in the election, right? You can do that, right? So give it a try. You're not going to lose anything, but 30 minutes of your time, and might have a good experience.
And think about how happy people will be to get a call from a random number that isn't about reaching them about their car's extended warranty. So that already, you're operating at a colossal advantage right then and there.
True,
You're asking them questions. It's nice.
You're clearing a very low bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is. People have been calling this like the biggest election of 2023, and it really is. In a lot of ways, it's a microcosm for the election in 2024. Like, I think like a lot of the mechanisms are kind of at play in Wisconsin are kind of echoed on a national scale, and we need to be able to an extent, treat this like, hey, we're getting ready for an even bigger fight. Treat this as your opportunity to train. You're in the shonen anime now. Okay, you're going up on the mountain. You're punching trees. You're building up the strength in your fists so you can come back and win the ultimate title. Okay, that's how we need to be treating kind of 2023, because in 2024 there's going to be a massive need for people to turn out, to volunteer and get out there.
In which, I don't know if we discussed this when Lance and Vaush were here, but I mean, even just as a reminder to their audiences, in 2020, the guy who is right now running as the conservative candidate, Daniel Kelly, he was involved. He was implicated in a scheme with the Republican Party in Wisconsin to help steal President Biden's electoral votes in Wisconsin by sending fake electors to Washington, D.C., and having then Vice President Pence certify them. He was paid 6 figures to do it, okay? And President Trump at the time attempted to disqualify 221,000 votes to steal Biden's electoral wins. And the only reason that didn't succeed was because one swing conservative judge had an attack of conscience and voted with the 3 liberal justices on the Supreme Court, and that was it. Donald Trump is more than likely going to be the 2024 nominee, unless, again, a miracle happens. Let me retract that. I almost said DeSantis getting the nomination was a miracle. I retract that. Hail Mary there. But
clip it, chat. Clip it. Go now. Do your thing. You know what to do. Go. Fly to Twitter, my pretties.
Isn't that scary that we're in a situation where even for a second somebody might think that that's a miracle just to avoid Donald Trump? That's terrifying. But the point is, if he tried it in 2020, what the hell's going to stop him from trying in 2024? Is this a man who has learned his lesson? Is this a man who exercises a limiting principle? Would we have any reason to believe that he won't try again? No, we have every reason to believe that he's going to try again. And if a guy who tried to help him steal the election in 2020 is in a position to help him steal the election in 2024, why won't he?
Hell, I firmly believe that he did learn his lesson. He learned that he's not in jail, so he can do more horrid shit to try harder.
Yeah.
As I was saying before, before Lance and Vaush came in, there is our conservative friends understand the importance of the judiciary, right? Like, just like in lefty circles, it's not something that we discuss very often. It's not a big topic of conversation until it's too late, right? Yeah, right. It's not. We don't have judges on like a swimsuit calendar, right? We don't have.
But we should
yet.
But we should. Holy crap!
Who doesn't want to see John Roberts in a Speedo in April for the Supreme Court judge?
I am glad I'm being recorded from the chest up right now. But okay, but our conservative friends, they understand the importance of the Supreme Court, and it's been a decades-long project to alter the judiciary, and under the Trump administration, they did a damn good job doing that. And we're dealing with the consequences now. Again, it's not always clear who is going to be in the right place at the right time to make that correct decision, right? Or at the very least, you trust to have the wisdom to make the correct decision, right? But right now, we have a judge, Judge Janet. And she would be in that key place, right? She would be that swing vote in a place that matters, in a place that could go blue or red, depending on a slim majority in the electorate. So if you want to make a difference there, right, which might matter, like literally might matter for the 2024 election, right? Altering the judicial landscape might be too big for you, right? Deciding the fate of a swing state might be too big for you, but you could help get this one person in place so that if it comes down to it, and it might, we'll have the right person in place to make the right call and might decide the election.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about what you were saying earlier about Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis? I personally think that Ron DeSantis is done because he tried to do the passive aggressive thing. He was trying to be like, I don't really know anything about paying off porn stars, and you don't do that on Trump. Trump is like, you got to go aggressive. It's like the only way to survive. Trump just has to turn around and be like, that guy fucks kids. Like, that's fucking, he's a groomer. He's a pedophile. Have you seen it? Yeah, he's a fucking groomer, that guy. Look at him. He fucks kids. And what are you going to do then? Like, you got nothing, right? Like, Ted Cruz went the distance because Ted Cruz was like, able to play that game eventually. He finally got to that point where he was like, "Oh, well, he said bad things about my wife, but otherwise, you're not going to survive."
I mean,
So,
honestly, I think DeSantis was done as soon as Trump started rolling out Meatball Ron. I don't think Ron DeSantis had.
over.
Yeah, I don't think he.
Ron DeSanctimonious versus Meatball Ron.
I think honestly, like Ron DeSantis heard Meatball Ron, and was just like, how do I even respond to this? Like on a stage, how do I do that? And meanwhile, Trump's just out there going like, I would never call him Meatball Ron. I would never do that. Like, it's just.
Did you all hear the interview that he did with Sean Hannity recently, where he goes on this like 8-minute anecdote about his relationship with Governor DeSantis, and it's standard Trump. Like, he takes every opportunity to insult him. I didn't know Ron very well, but Ron came to me. He was in tears. He was like, "Mr. President, I need your endorsement so bad." And I was like, "Ron, you kind of backed me, during my first impeachment, and so, but you listen, it's such a long shot. You're so behind in the polls." But he's like constantly talking shit about this guy for like 8 minutes, uninterrupted stream of consciousness, going back and forth on random tangents to take opportunities to blatantly shit talk DeSantis. And yeah, then you contrast that with DeSantis, who I think is trying to straddle this fine line again, where he's avoiding any head-on collision. But to your point, I don't think that works. Trump made mincemeat of people in the 2016 election who appealed to their conservative bona fides. I mean, there's no like, you take somebody like Ted Cruz. This dude's litigated in front of the Supreme Court multiple times. He went to Harvard. He's clearly a smart guy. He does a hell of an impression of an idiot, but he is a smart guy. Donald Trump is not very smart. And so when Cruz appeals to, ideology, and to his conservative bona fides, it was just simply no match. You have to be a wrecking ball, and he's more of a meatball, like you said. Ron DeSantis is not a wrecking ball; he's a meatball.
Yeah, I think, and I think we should all be thankful for that as well. I'm a MAGA communist. I fully support Donald Trump over Ron DeSantis. No, I mean it unironically, because obviously Donald Trump is terrible, But you saw his recent thing in front of the American.
Oh no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, he's shitting on trans people. You can tell Donald Trump, he does not care about trans people. He doesn't. I doubt he understands much of what's going on. He doesn't follow the points. It seems like somebody just handed him like a script or a set of talking points, and they were like, okay, like, hey, it's not 2016 anymore. It's 2023, and these are the things we talk about. And he just like reiterated the same Trumpisms with those points slotted in. Ron DeSantis ideologically gets off to people suffering. I think man was at Gitmo. He personally is emotionally committed to suffering. Donald Trump.
He was a
doesn't care
torture
about
whisperer.
He's
That was his actual role.
He's been identified by former detainees at Guantanamo for like, oh yeah, that's the guy who, while I was being tortured, laughed at me, and then when I couldn't take it anymore, I vomited in his face. He was
supposedly employed, but I think it was an unpaid internship. I think to Vaush's point,
he was just paid to be there.
Pro bono.
Donald Trump wouldn't have done any of that. He would have walked into Gitmo, called everyone there poor, and then walked out. He wouldn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
See,
These are facts.
Trump cares about applause. He's a narcissist. He's a megalomaniac. But it's entirely like an affirmation game. I think DeSantis would like cohesively and intelligently bring ruin to the fine people of this country. So I'm a MAGA communist. I support Donald Trump in his electoral endeavors, and then I support, let's be realistic here, Biden against him come 2024. All right.
So Donald Trump has the endorsement of the biggest Dark Souls streamer on Twitch right now.
True.
That's gonna play. He's gonna have that, and his next NFT will be a picture of him and Vaush standing side by side.
God, I wish I'd hang that on my mantle.
I just want to, like, bringing it back to Wisconsin again, like, it's really hard to emphasize how bad Dan Kelly is when it comes to like women's rights in Wisconsin. Like, a lot of Republicans will be like, well, I'm against abortion, but I think there should be exceptions in the case of the life of the mother. Or, I'm against abortions, but I think birth control is good and should be allowed. Dan Kelly, like, wrote a series of blog posts between 2012 and 2016 where he literally argued that abortion should just be banned with no exceptions, and that birth control should also be made illegal. Like he's just full on into the whole look, if you have sex, you deserve to be just a baby maker. That's your role, okay?
And Justice Thomas, so Justice Clarence, the birth control thing I didn't know about, but I'm sure you all remember that when in the Dobbs decision, Justice Clarence Thomas was like, hey, maybe now we should revisit, and I can't remember if it was Lawrence or v. Texas or whatever the case is, that guarantees access to birth control. So that's another scary facet about Dan Kelly I didn't know about, that you basically got a little mini Clarence Thomas here in Wisconsin who's like, hey, maybe birth control shouldn't be an option.
Well, that's always been the long-term goal here, because they don't give a shit about fetuses. They've never cared. The real reason they care about abortion is because obviously making abortion illegal would kind of artificially force women back into like an earlier era of domestic servitude. Same with birth control, right? It's pretty difficult to do the whole like independent girl boss thing when one sex is all it takes to inter you into 18 years of committed financial obligation, which you can't afford singly, by the way. Everything's so expensive right now. Like, you got to shack up for that unless you're some kind of, I don't know, venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and the bank closure, maybe not even that's enough anymore. So yeah, it all comes back, I think, ultimately to like barefoot pregnant trad wives in the kitchen making gelatin pies or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's that mixed with like they want cheap labor. They want more people in the United States that they can exploit.
And it's why they hate trans women, because they invented a woman,
it's true,
who doesn't need birth control to not get pregnant.
It's true.
And I can't remember the particulars of the I know before we lost our majority in the House of Representatives federally, I know President Biden signed into law some sort of protection for gay marriage, if I remember correctly, but there were little asterisks along the way with respect to like state laws. I can't remember what it is, but I do know Riverboat Jack, based on those blog posts that Dan Kelly made, he also said that Obergefell v. Hodges, which was the case that legitimized gay marriage, that was illegitimate. Those were his exact words. It was illegitimate and wrongly decided. So I don't want to talk out my ass here, but like, if there are certain concessions made in that bill that Democrats were able to squeak by in it's like November or December.
The Protect Equality Marriage Act or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So now imagine in a state that it's 3 seats away from getting a Republican supermajority in its state legislature, and then if Dan Kelly wins, it would be a conservative Supreme Court. So imagine a situation where this guy who, like you said, he's anti-trans, he's anti-birth control, anti-abortion, apparently anti-gay marriage. Why again would we assume that there would be any protections for any of those things? Birth control, abortion, gay marriage. A lot of people will, I think, cope and say, well, gay marriage, it's really not in danger. It's a settled issue. And to me, it's like if conservatives on a national level are targeting birth control, which is, I think, even less controversial to people than gay marriage, then they will absolutely seek to undo gay marriage protections if given the opportunity. And we should assume that that'd be the case here in Wisconsin.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to pull in the Humanist Report. Here we go. Hello. Nice. Hope we didn't keep you waiting too long. Welcome.
No, not at all. I'm sorry for being late. I am a boomer when it comes to Discord, so the fact that you can hear me is, or at least I assume you can hear me, is good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know how to see you all, so I'm gonna work on that real quick.
Okay.
There we go.
There we
go.
go.
Hey.
Hey,
Oh,
Mike.
hi.
Okay. Nice to see everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm such a boomer.
Good to see you,
No
Mike.
worries.
You're amongst
but-
boomers here. We're all.
Yeah.
I'm in
boomers
good
here,
company then.
Mike.
Okay, good. Good. How we doing, folks?
Doing all
We're
right.
doing
We just
great.
endorsed Donald Trump in the 2024
We.
election.
Well, thank God. I
I
don't want to be
With
the only
me.
one.
No. I second. I want Donald Trump to beat Ron DeSantis. I think Donald Trump is more beatable than Ron Sanctimonious. So
Oh yeah.
I'd rather have Trump
Yeah.
beat Meatball Ron. Yes.
Also,
agree.
I'm team Trump right now.
Mike, why don't you introduce yourself? Where can people find you?
Well, I am Mike from the Humanist Report, and I post videos on YouTube every single day. I host the Leftist Mafia with my buddy Lance here every single Thursday. And yeah, I'm all around. Search the Humanist Report and you'll find me. Probably somebody on the right talking shit, but nonetheless, you will find me if you search for that.
Which one of you is the equivalent of Don Corleone? If this is like the leftist mafia, like which one of you is Marlon Brando's
Oh.
character?
Oof.
I don't know,
They're
Lance. What do you
both being
think?
modest.
It's definitely not.
They're
me.
they're both
It's-
thinking like, yeah, it's me.
Yes,
They
it's
don't
No,
wanna- yeah.
no, I don't have that personality. I'm like, I don't want it, sir. I do not want to be granting favors and deciding who lives or dies.
Yeah, well then,
Okay.
Mike, I guess.
Okay,
I
well
guess
then,
it's you.
Yeah, Mike can take it.
well then, who's waking up
Okay.
next to the horse head?
I'm just trying to remember who was the rat.
Everyone's
Who's the
thinking,
one no one
yeah,
wants
it's me.
wants
I'm
to
waking
be?
up next to the horse head. Yeah.
It's a regular Saturday night for me. Mike, it's nice to meet you. I don't think we've ever talked in person before.
Nice to
but-
meet you too.
Yeah.
Um,
Prime
Mike,
in case
I'm
you know
below.
who I am. Yeah. I wanted to relate this back since we have a new person here. Do another call to action.
Yeah, let's do it.
To our great audience here who's been sticking with us. We want you, if you have a moment, and I'm sure you do. I'm sure you have a bit of time, right, to get involved in this race. This is the Wisconsin race, and Judge Janet is trying to get on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and it's a very important decision, election, a very important moment, and it would swing the court. It would give us a fighting chance of unfucking the state in terms of gerrymandering, right? This is one of those few times where you know that your efforts actually add up to something big, right? And it takes a very little effort on your end. Go to progress.win, and it will take you to a form, right? You fill out the form, you get access to the Discord. It gives you all the information to be a part of this. To canvas, right? If you can get to Wisconsin, that's fantastic because it's super effective. Or you can try phone banking, and it's very easy. You can do it from home. You don't have to use your own phone to do so. But in a very short amount of time, you can contact a whole bunch of voters. Please consider, if you have the time, and just a little bit of time will do, half hour maybe, right? To be involved in this election.
Yeah, it's this is really the opportunity that we have, because this election will determine the electoral maps, essentially, for Wisconsin, which will in turn open all kinds of new doors in Wisconsin or leave them shut for the next 10 years. So this is the one opportunity we get in the foreseeable future. The one shot to, as Prime said, unfuck Wisconsin.
Another I want to promote that Prime has been saying, these elections can be won with very, very slim margins, and you're not playing against people who play fair, okay? We're talking about a party that has George Santos in it. Do you know the things that George Santos has convinced the world of? Do you know what he's gotten away with? It blows my mind. How does a single human being go for this long? And some of them are more absurd than I ever thought humanly possible. And this is real. George, he's a real thing, you know? He's like Santa Claus. And if we believe in him, he's real. And all I'm saying is that they don't play fair. They're pieces of shit. So get out there, phone bank, canvas, knock on doors, phone calls, whatever you got to do, because that's what you're up against.
That guy defrauded the Amish. I like it's crazy that he's anywhere near a seat of power.
I didn't know about that one.
Oh yeah,
See, case in point.
he bounced
shorter list.
He bounced a bunch of checks to the Amish for puppies.
At this point, it's a shorter list of people he did not defraud. So I'm actually about to step out. Before I do, I just want to say, so I was in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago canvassing. The election is on April 4th. I don't know what Progressive Victory and what Progress Libs is doing in terms of canvassing. I think they're doing it this weekend as well. They're still canvassing. So I would encourage people, if you have the opportunity, if you're local in Wisconsin, or if you're not local, I'm sure that Progressive Victory and Progress Libs can make arrangements for you. It was a lot of fun. Even in the cold, it was a lot of fun. I had no bad interaction. The best interaction I had with a person was a conservative, believe it or not. And it was really good for even introverts as well, people who have told me that they would never have done something like this. Well, they did do it, and they had a good time. Prime and Riverboat Jack and Lance, they've all made the case here for why this election is so important. And to quote the great sage philosopher Marshall Mathers, this is our opportunity. We don't. I couldn't do it with a straight face. I folded. I was gonna quote it.
Oh, that was pure mom spaghetti. I gotta tell you.
Yes, exactly. Sorry. So anyway, I'm Josiah. You can find me at Pondering Politics on YouTube, where I bitch about Republicans ad infinitum. And guys, it was really nice talking with you all. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
It was lovely having you.
Pleasure.
Thank you for giving us so much time.
Very nice.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.
Hey, you! Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you absolutely hated the video, the best revenge for you is also to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That'll teach me. If you want to share an opinion or share some feedback, go ahead and leave a comment, all right? 2023 is a year of change, hence the aggressive rebrand and commitment to new content. Inspired by my friends Luke Beasley and STV Philly, my personal goal for this channel is to hit 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I'm hoping you'll do me a solid by spreading the word and the videos to potential fans and hate watchers alike. And in the meantime, we'll be pondering politics again with you very soon.